Great. Good. Very good. Well, welcome to the 5D Academy of Higher Consciousness. I'm Zarathustra. I'm broadcasting live from Tulum, Mexico. And one of our participants requested to talk about um, speaking your truth, which I'm sure we have talked about this few times before in past 10 years. Oh, by the way, I believe I have to check this. I think February 1st or 15th will be our 10th anniversary of the 5D Academy. I have to talk to Shishi. Shishi probably knows. You remember Shishi, right? She probably knows the date. Also, if anyone, any Persian speaking audience, wondering what happened to yesterday's broadcast, uh, the I was not able to post it. My phone froze, and or Instagram wouldn't let me posting it. Something happened, and as a result, the video got lost. So because I'm just basically on Wednesdays, I'm only doing through the Insta. I'm not using any other uh, channels. So that's what happened. We lost the video. It was a good one, but what to do? Um, okay, so let's talk about. Hi, Lydia. Nice to see you. Welcome. Welcome back. Let's talk about speaking about our truth. And this is a very common thing that most of us uh, we have a hard time telling our truth and being confrontational, and and it takes a lot of energy to do that, to confront, especially somebody who is of an authority, and to let them tell them how we feel or what we do. And so let's kind of dive into this and dissect it and see where it comes from, what is it connected with, and how we can overcome it if we can. I can use myself as an example, is that um, where basically it comes from, it has a lot to do with our, I mean, it's directly connected to our childhood and our conditioning, how we've been conditioned. And this symptom uh, is very connected to a number of different factors. Number one is the family we grow up in, and what kind of attitude and behavior our parents had with us. Were they forceful, authoritative, um, dominating, or they were soft? Another factor of it is the culture. It's very cultural, depending on which region of the world you were born in, and what type of rituals that region, that nation is, or state or city that you were born in and grew up, they practice. Um, and the third one also is your DNA. And some people naturally, genetically, are passive or more quiet, and they don't feel like going through any confrontation. So it's not necessarily always being conditioned, but I would say majority of us, we have been conditioned. So um, for example, I'm just going to use myself. is I come from a culture which is basically children, younger ones have to be very respectful to the older ones. In Persian culture, when an older person walks into the room, you all have to get up, stand up for them, greeting him, standing up for them to come and sit. Once they sit, everybody else sits. At least this is how it was during my time. I don't know, I haven't been in Iran for 20 years. I don't know what it's like now, but that's how it used to be. So if you didn't get up, if someone older walked in, and when I'm saying someone older, I'm not talking about I am 10 years old and a 15-year-old walks in and I have to get up for them. No, but I'm 10 years old, and if somebody's like 20, 30 years old, 40 years old, they walk in, that you're kind of viewing him as an adult, you had to get up for them, stand up and greet them. And then I remember we would be going out to lunch or dinner at one of our families, uh, aunt or uncle. And the thing was, my mom was saying, like, okay, um, they're going to be offering you, like in Persian culture, there's this thing. People offer you food, and you're supposed to say no, thank you, or you should take very little. You first you have to refuse it. So, and then they insist more, and then you take a little bit, and then they insist more, and then you take more, because it's because your mom tells you no, it's bad if they offer you food in the first place and you accept it. It's bad. So, or a number of different things. Or if someone's older, they're saying something to you. um, First of all, in Persian language, there's two different yous. There's a formal you and there's a casual you. It's like Spanish. Um, like we don't have it in English. There's only one you. But in Persian language, there's two yous. The formal you, that you talk to someone older, to your teacher or your dad or mom. And then there's a you that you use to talk to your friends. But if you meet somebody on the street as a stranger, you don't use the common you use the more polite you. So there's got all these respectful stuff that you have to be very respectful in your behavior or your language. So um, I was relatively very quiet child, and I wasn't so much confrontational. And most of the time, I just minded my own business. So, and also, speaking your truth, one other thing I need to share with you is your fifth chakra. This is your chakra of expression, expressing yourself, your creativity, um, whatever has to do with expression is your fifth chakra. So, what happens to a lot of us is that we are being shut down as a child. And you may, by the adults. And of course, at that age, you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. Physically, you're inferior uh, to the adults, and you can't physically challenge them till you're maybe 14, 15, 16 years old, and you become a big boy or a big girl. Then you can stand up for yourself. Secondly, also financially, you're dependent on your parents or the adults that you live with. So it's their way or highway. It's basically whatever whatever they dictate on you, you have to abide by it. And there's also a lot of, if you say no or you don't want to be doing certain kind of rituals that your family, let's say your parents telling you this is Sunday and we have to go to the church, so you got to put your nicest dress on and go to the church, and you're refusing, you're 7 years old, they're going to shame you. There's a lot of shame and guilt. Or they may be using your brothers, sisters who are older than you and shaming you. So, speaking back to what we're talking about, is why is it so difficult? Why we have so much problems by speaking our truth? It's connected to these various different things that I'm talking about. But it's very roots. It goes back to something I believe I talked about. I think it was last week or a couple weeks, or I'm not exactly sure which date it was. It goes back to the very first imprint that is being copied on our consciousness as a child. It goes back to being abandoned. Abandonment, the sense of being abandoned, has to do a lot to do with the decisions we appear to make. First of all, I mean, if you go deeper than that, and which I've talked about it many times, there is no choice. But now our conversation is in third dimension. I'm not talking about 5D. I'm not talking about Advaita Vedanta. I'm simply talking about assuming you are separated and you have choice and you can choose. It's an assumption, which in absolute reality it's not true. But let's say you have an option and you can make choices. And now we're going into human psyche, human psychology. So most 99.99% of human beings at birth, in the first maybe 2-3 weeks of being born, they get an imprint of being abandoned. And that imprint that is on our psyche at that age is the very basis on all other decisions that you're going to be making for the rest of your life. And we're not even aware of that. There's no awareness of it. Very, very little people know about this. So the reason is that you're born and you're completely helpless. And your connection to the world is through your parents. Now, assuming there are parents, I'm talking about like a, a typical situation on the planet. I'm not talking about having a single mom or single dad. I'm talking about child is born and they have a parents, and what happens is, let's say typically, for example, typically again, I don't want to insult women and the feminists or anyone who's working, but I'm just using this as a typical example, okay? It's like the dad goes to work and naturally the mom is taking care of the child. So, but the mom cannot hold this child against her breast all day long, 24 hours a day. It's impossible. So there's times that you have to leave the child and go to the bathroom or shower or go pick up the mail or do whatever you, or take a nap or whatever you have to do. What happens is the child connection to the world is through these two couples, dad and mom. And so if the child is cold or hungry or feeling sick or uncomfortable, it's not able to speak. There's no language. So they cry or they're quiet. But their needs are not being met because, again, you can't be there all the time. So the child feels abandoned, left. Or maybe you put the child in bed, uh, child wakes up in the middle of the night and is dark, it's scared, it's crying, and nobody's there to hold the child. So the child feels betrayed by the two people that the child loves the most, or is connected or adores the most, because this couple is the guardian of the child, and the child is completely dependent on them. There's nothing it can do. You're 3 weeks old and you're completely dependent on your parents. You're 3 years old, you're completely dependent on your parents. You're 7 years old, you're completely dependent on your parents. You can't do things on your own, but especially in early stages of your life, you are completely 100% dependent. And so when you're left out, it leaves a mark of being abandoned. Leaves a mark of being betrayed. So you carry this hate because the two people that you really loved, they left you. You're not aware of it, so there is hate under it. So we come with this package. That's sort of the program on top of other programs that we get programmed. Now, you are in a submissive culture that you have to be obedient, or you're a woman, most importantly, women who have been repressed in past thousands of years severely, at least past 2,000 years, that women, they've been treated as subhuman. They've been used as a merchandise for trade, and basically been have not had rights. Just lately, in past maybe 80, 90 years, that you, women have rights. They can vote or whatever. But before, there were second-class citizens all over the world, pretty much, or most of the world. So there's already this package that we come to this world with. There's a history of thousands of years of being used and sold and turned into prostitutes and all kinds of things. So this is like some heavy stuff is coming. When you're born in this world, you're already going to bring all this stuff which has been there historically. So naturally, you're scared to speak your truth because you've been prosecuted throughout the history over and over again in different ways. So, but let's come to this time, our time, and us. And of course, a lot of this is changing. Now you can see that A lot of women are being empowered, especially in the younger generations. They don't put up with the bullshit that they had to put up with when they were young, in our maybe time. So there is liberation and there is transformation that is happening globally, not everywhere, uh, there's still a lot of repression, but it's changing. It's slowly changing. And hopefully it will keep changing for better. If this planet's still around and it doesn't blow itself up. Now, back to directly in the topic we're talking about. Why is it so difficult to speak your truth? So, saying what I said, it comes back to most of us. Number one is our father was the, or at least for me, he was the authority. And and he would just gives us the final word, and that was it. There was no ifs or buts. And but who did they parents? When parents having children, the child doesn't come with the manual. It doesn't come with a little booklet. When the child is born, you're not born with a little booklet that your parents can refer to this booklet how to raise a child. So basically, they have no clue. Zero. They have no idea how to raise children. And they're encouraged to raise children, but they have no idea how to raise them. And that's kind of really, I have to say, that's, I mean, it's, of course, it's divine, it's God's will that it is the way it is. But from one other part, from one other section, if you look at it, it's really fucked up. And this has been going on for thousands of years, and we keep encouraging people to have children, but there is no preparation generally, because here is a couple who have their own baggages and they have their own issues. They got a lot of problems. They've been beaten up, abandoned, raped, or whatever. And now they're making kids. And we sometimes encouraging them to make kids at young age. They don't have a clue what's going on. So this thing keeps passing on generation after generation after generation. The same thing. And if you look at yourself sometimes, you can hear your mom or your dad speaking. Like you can hear them talking through you. And the kind of things you do is like as your dad is doing it, as your mom doing it. You kind of, it got copy paste. The way they think or the way their attitudes or their fears or their stuff is transferred. And you're doing that. So when it comes to speaking the truth, is naturally, for this does not include what I'm telling you. This is not, does not include angry people. Angry people, they're angry and they speak their truth because they're angry and they're looking for they're confrontational. So, and they over exaggerate it because they're really angry and they're looking for something which is wrong. They're looking for someone who's going to poke them or find something off, and then they can go off on them. So, but if you're not angry, then you're going to have, most probably, you're going to have this problem. Unless you start to become aware of it and you begin to work on yourself. Otherwise, it's just an unconscious behavior. And now I'm going to give you some examples. And, it's just, this is almost in everywhere, in every transaction that you're making in your life. Every day, you have an opportunity to speak your truth. And that could be with anything. You can, it depends how much energy you have for it, but it could be as strong and powerful as confronting your dad because your dad or your mom is verbally abusive, or they've always told you, you're 13 years old and something's happening in the house and your dad is saying something to you and you want to answer back and he's telling you, shut up, you're a kid, sit down and listen. Or you're a girl and girls don't speak in this house, or blah, blah, blah. So it could be as extreme as that, or your teacher, your work, your teachers are like that. I've had many teachers beat me up, or or telling me to shut up, or not allowing me to speak my truth. That was the entire years that I went to school was like that. Um, or you are at work and you have a boss, your boss or one of your colleagues is abusive. They have abusive behavior, or verbally they're abusive. So, or maybe you want to return, you bought a shirt and something's wrong with the shirt and you want to return it, but you're afraid to go and return it. It could be a very, you know, or you bought a watermelon from your local store and you bring it home and the watermelon is rotten. And now, you're afraid to go back and confront the merchant. So there's like, we can sit down and talk a million of different stories. If you're with your doctor, you're in army, or whatever it is, whatever is the scenario, you're in a relationship, happens a lot. There's a man and husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, and one of them is dominant. The they're married, and the woman is dominant, and she's the boss. She's wearing the pants, and the guy is afraid to speak his truth, so he puts up with her. So this is going on everywhere. It's not only you. It's happening all over the world, and it's going to be happening all over the world. It's not something's going to stop. The key is to recognize it. Like what you brought up to me, Hilde, that requires courage to talk about it, because not everyone's got the courage to talk about it. It also requires becoming aware of it, having an awareness of it. So, which maybe a lot of people around the world, they're not even aware of it. It is changing. I can see it with new generations changing, and they're very smart. The kids these days, they're very smart. So it's interesting to see that, but I see that with myself. And still to this day, I can see with myself there are times that I have to confront someone and fear comes for me. I get afraid. But what am I getting afraid of? Okay? So the fear is to be rejected. If I'm going to go confront somebody, maybe they cut me off and I lose this friendship or connection or whatever. Maybe I have to raise my voice. So it's uncomfortable. You kind of don't want to do it, basically. You're trying to avoid it, unless you're angry. An angry person is a different story because they're looking for these kind of things. So the roots of it is fear. The fear of being left out. It goes back to abandonment. And especially if you're going to be talking to your dad, let's say now you're 24, 5 years old, and or you got married, and now you're 30 years old. Now you're becoming a woman, and you're making your own money. You have your own family, and you're not depending on your dad anymore. But your dad is using abusive language, or is the authority, is a big figure, and you become aware. You're doing self-awakening courses, you're reading books, you're working on yourself, and you know you have to confront your dad, but you're afraid, and you can be frozen when it comes to some authority, dad or mom, doesn't matter, someone who's a big authority, and you always looked up to them and you're afraid of them. And now you have to speak your truth against them. And fear comes. So this is my, does this make sense? Are we here? Do we relate to what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay, so what do we do? And the way to look at it, or is, okay, that's one thing. Let's say another scenario. A friend of mine told me like lately, his dad shows up at his apartment like 3 times a day. They lost a bunch of family, but it's getting really annoying now. Now he's really annoyed because he has no space. Uh, let's say a friend does that. Or another scenario is like you have a friend that every time you start, they ask you a question and you starting answering the question, and then they just interrupt you. And they always do that. And you're afraid to tell them about their behavior. Maybe you have a friend that you're eating lunch, you go to a restaurant, and they, while they're eating, they talk. So particles of food flies out. And it's really annoying you. And you really love them, but that's the behavior they have. And you're really afraid to tell them this because you don't know. Or maybe they have bad breath. Have you had a friend or relative or someone you really care for, but they have bad breath? Or you're dating somebody who has a bad breath? What are you going to say? It's really like it's bugging you, but you have to deal with it. I'm using these different examples. Or let's say you promised your girlfriends or your buddies, your guy friends, that, okay, this weekend, tomorrow's Friday, this weekend, we planned all of us going to go camping together, or all of us gonna do something. So it's four of you or three of you. And it comes to a point you really don't feel like doing it. You really want to stay home tonight or this weekend. You really want to be quiet. Your inner being wants you to be quiet. It really feels right. And you're afraid to disappoint other people because, again, this goes back to disappointing someone else, or it's related to fear that if I speak my truth, what is going to happen to me, not to them? It comes back to me. So now I'm going to connect this, reuse this as the human behavior, but let's go now to how it's connected to the theme of the fifth dimension and entering into fifth dimensional consciousness, operating from a higher level of consciousness. How they get connected to each other, and how is this going to get connected to the me, the I thought? I am someone named Zarathustra, and I am separated from everything else. Obviously, I don't feel like I'm one with this cup, and I don't feel like I'm one with this remote control. So I am an individual entity separated from everything else. And as we have talked about it before, and you all know, all of you have been with me, uh, you know, I don't believe in individual entity. So, so this is nothing new that we're talking about, right? Are you there? Right. Okay. So, how does this topic of speaking your truth gets connected to this other topic that there is no individual doer capable of making its own decisions? And where is this fear coming from? So now I'm going to confront my dad or my mom or my girlfriend or my wife or someone or my landlord or someone of authority. They're doing something shitty, or my boss who's maybe sexually harassing me or verbally abusing me, or they're being racist, or whatever scenario. This is widespread. It spreads into almost every, it spreads into every factor and point of our lives. Speaking your truth. So why am I afraid? And if you follow it back, is what's going to happen if I just tell you, for instance, that you know what, I'm not going to do the academy anymore, you know? Okay, let's say I've come up with this idea, I don't want to do it, but I'm afraid of disappointing my beloved friends and family, that I'm not going to be doing it anymore. And I want to say it, but I'm afraid of saying it. Or I need to tell my dad or my mom that, or my best friend or somebody, or my lover, that you have bad breath. Or, I don't know, you cut me off when I'm talking, or that you don't let me finish what I have to say. And okay, it's a big thing. And the fear comes. But the fear is happening to who? Who is the one who's experiencing the fear? The fear goes back to the I thought. goes to the sense of there is a me, and this me is capable of making its own decisions. And if I tell you my truth, then you're not going to love me anymore. You're not going to like me anymore. You're going to get rid of me, which has happened in all of our lives. One of your friends or family came and criticized you about some unconscious behavior that you have, and you got rid of it. You cut them off, especially if you're in a position of power. So you got rid of it. That has happened to every single one of us in our lives. If you just rewind the tape in your mind, you're going to find at least one occasion, if not 5 or 10, that you spoke your truth and they cut you off. You're not welcome anymore. Or maybe you're a part of a cult or a group, spiritual group or something, and you spoke your truth about some screwed up unconscious behavior, and you get cut off. So then there's the fear of getting cut off, but the fear is happening to whom? Who's the one who's afraid? Anybody? Can someone volunteer? Who's the one who's afraid?
It's the ego. The ego is afraid.
Yeah, it's the ego. And what is the ego? It's I, me,
Yes.
I, right? Okay, so I am afraid. And now I'm talking about finding the solution. Okay, we already talked about the problem. We've already used different examples of uh, different scenarios, which you're welcome to share with me, different your scenarios. We already established that part of it. But how do I deal with this? So the way I look at it personally is I look at it that number one is this is a wall. This is a wall of myself. This is my wall of challenge. And I need to climb this wall. And most of the time, I would say 99% of the time in my life, that I had a fear of something. And there's a number of different ones. Let's say I'm going to give a talk in in an expo, and there's 400 people sitting there, and I'm going to give a talk, a lecture, and I'm afraid. I have fear. Or I'm flying into a new country, or I'm going to somewhere new, or whatever. I'm just sharing of my own experiences, okay? This may not be relating to you, but you know, and I'm afraid. There's fear. And the way I look at it is I look at it that, especially when it comes to confronting somebody to speak my truth, what you want to do is you want to turn the poison into the medicine. Okay? Are you with me? You want to turn the poison into the medicine. Most of us don't like to confront other people about something. So the way I look at it is I look at it that God, existence, is giving me an opportunity. This is a good thing. I don't look at it as a bad thing. Again, if you remember, I told you the entire higher level of consciousness and awakening is about if you're capable of looking at things from a different point, different angle. If you have the agility, if you have the elasticity, if you have the flexibility of looking at something in your life from a different angle. So, one angle of it is the typical one that I hate confrontation, I just let it pass. And that's very common, especially in like Sweden, Norway, these countries I've been, Denmark, because in a way it's very much about being obedient, you know, be look like everyone else, dress like everyone else, don't be different, don't say anything different, you know, take the same vacation, eat the same food, have the same hairstyle. So it's got its thing in that way, and then in Middle East it's the same thing, is in a different form, it manifests itself in a different form. So because I've been in both regions long enough to see and observe the behavior of people, of how they act. So, and the way I look at it is that existence has given me an opportunity. Number one, I'm not a victim. I'm being tested. I'm in a university of consciousness, and existence throws curve balls at me. Existence is creating challenges at me, for me, and I have to overcome these challenges because I'm in school. This life, it's not holiday, and this life is not a country club. This life has a lot of sour and sweet. There's a lot of great things about it, and there's a lot of fucked up stuff about it. Excuse my language, but it's just the way I need to explain it. Okay, there's a lot of great moments and pleasures, but it also comes with a lot of suffering in the same time. They come together. So it's not like you came to a holiday in this life. From the time you were born, number one is death is chasing you. There's a shadow here, it's called death. From the time you were born, even your 10 minutes, you're already old. Okay, so I would look at it that I'm in the university of life, and this is an opportunity, this is a weakness or a weak point of me, and this is something I need to accomplish and overcome. And that accomplishment is to have to confront an authority type, to tell him, no, I'm not okay with this. My truth tells me no. Or I don't want to marry you, or I don't want to date you, or I don't want to eat this food you put in front of me. This is, I don't want it. Take it back. This, or whatever. Or confronting my dad and telling him, fuck you, you're an asshole. And that's so frightening. You know, you've been abusive, you've been an asshole, you've been, you know, supportive so many times, but you're also an asshole. You're an asshole to my mom. I don't appreciate it. Or some, whatever the story is, but it's very, very frightening in that moment, facing, in your mind, you have created this giant of authority. Now you have to face it and say no. If you like to learn more about confrontation and saying a no, I'm going to recommend a famous person who went against the world and said no. and watch some videos of the boxer, the greatest, Muhammad Ali, which was Cassius Clay, and watch some of the videos. Muhammad Ali Clay, who became the U.S. Olympic champion in 1960, and he became the world boxing heavyweight champion in 1974. In 1964, I'm sorry. And then he changed his religion. He became a Muslim because he was saying, my name, Cassius Marcelo Clay, is a slave name. This is right where they killed John F. Kennedy. This is right when they killed Martin Luther King. This is like an intense time. This is not a joke. This is like some really intense time in the history of the US, the 60s, right? Where everyone was voting in the United States to send the 18, 19-year-olds to Vietnam to fight. And 95% of the population of the United States was pro-Vietnam War, 1966, 67. And here is this black man stands up, he gets indicted to go to Vietnam War by US Army, and he refuses. He says, I'm not going to go 10,000 miles away to kill brown people who don't call me a Negro. You guys here in the US been calling me a Negro. I don't have any beef with the Vietnamese or Viet Congs. I'm not going to go there and fight your war. This is your war. Here in this country, you don't even let me go in the same cafeteria to the same coffee shop as white people. I can't even sit in a bus. I have to go sit at the end of the bus. And the toilets are segregated. Everything's segregated. We don't have rights. I'm not going to fight for you guys. He declined to go to Vietnam War in front of the world. And then the census where 80% of the population of the US hated him at that time. And the same person 15 years after, they gave him a big medal and award at White House for being one of the greatest persons fighting for human rights or the black people's rights. And of course, he was 3 times heavyweight champion of the world, 3 times, because they stripped him from his title and they banned him from fighting for 3.5 years in his prime. He was 25 years old, 26 years old, and he was on top of the world, and they banned him from fighting. And of course, they were going to imprison him, but because he turned Muslim and he became I think he was some kind of a priest, preacher or something. So they were able to use that is for religious reasons. You know, the religion does not allow him to go to war. So anyway, he didn't do any time in prison. But they stripped him away from his title for 3.5 years. So he lost his prime time of competing. But he stood up, and there were like millions of letters, threatening letters coming to him that people wanted to assassinating him, and they hated him. But he stood up to the US government and the majority of the population of the America at that time. And he walked his talk. So if you ever want inspiration regarding speaking your truth, watch some of his videos and you will be amazed what this guy did. And you will be amazed that how much guts one person can have to stand up in this heat of Vietnam War. Of course, later on, 70, 70, 71, 72, 3, 4, 5, 4, I think it ended, but there was very, very powerful anti-war sentiments later. But in the beginning, most of the US was really gone ho. Let's go kill these bastards. Let's go kill these brown people, or let's go kill uh, these communists and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, I don't have any beef with them. This is your war. I'm not going to go fight for you. You don't even let me go in the same restaurant as white people. I'm not going to go kill brown people for you. We fought your second world war. We fought your first world war. We're not going to fight for you. So again, there's tremendous fear. As I mentioned, it's a lot of it is also historic, especially for the women, because of thousands of years of being repressed, still happening many, many places in the world. You have to dig deep inside and go into your fear and look at it as God is giving you a challenge for you to rise, for you to climb the wall of fear of yourself. This is the fear inside you. And to speak your truth, you're going to demonstrate to God, to life, to yourself by opening your mouth and telling your truth. Now, there are ways of saying it that you don't provoke a lot of anger, which I'm going to share this with you. I think we're going to have a longer academy today. How are you feeling so far? Yeah? Let's take a 5-minute break, bathroom break, and then we continue because I want to ask you questions. I want to get into this with you. This is a good topic. Just a quick, if you want to get a cup of tea or use the bathroom or something, and then we meet back again in a few minutes. Okay. Okay. So I'll wait a little bit longer for everyone to show up, and then we go. Let's see here. Hello, Miss Kate. Nice to see you. Welcome back. You may be wondering why I'm wearing a sweater here. It's the weather turned and it started getting a bit cold here in Tulum. I mean, at least cold for me. And I've been doing a 5 day cleanse, so I've been fasting. So, doing a kidney cleanse, which feels really good. I thought, okay, I'm sick. I might as well do a cleanse, clean up the body. So, been mostly fasting, drinking like watermelon juice and all these herbs to get rid of the stuff. So, okay, I think, do we have Joanna DYS? Hi, have we met before?
No, we've met.
We have.
We have.
Oh, here at the academy or in person?
Here in the academy and almost in Poland.
Okay, almost in Poland. Okay, you're Polish?
Correct.
Yeah, great. Where in Poland are you from? Or
Very close to the Baltic Sea.
Baltic Sea. Okay.
About 6 hour drive from the camp where you went.
Okay. So it's towards. I'm trying to. It's past Dansk. Dansk. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the 5D Academy. Okay. So far, anybody wants to? Does Does what I'm saying make any sense to anyone? Okay. Anybody got a story to share with us, or you relate? Uh, do you want to? What do you think, Miss Hilda?
Yeah, I can relate, that's for sure. You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
so yeah, I've always been afraid that people should leave me. They haven't done it, but my fear has been there all the time that if I do something or if I say, if I'm telling them this or that, they will leave, and then I will be alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember
Again.
I was 6 weeks premature, when I put me into a ventilator. So I think it started there because I was alone and was crying all the time, for 57 years ago. So I think it started there maybe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. Again, the fear of being left out, which is being abandoned.
Yeah. And at the hospital too, when I was 7 and everything. And I had to just been there alone because my parents could be there, so I was just there alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
And I was very little. I was thinking, why is God doing this to me? What have I done wrong? I thought that God were punishing me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah, of course. I mean, we don't know. I mean, we don't have this information we have right now at that age. And especially if you're, excuse me, coming from a very religious background, you know, it's like you can connect it to, I mean, if you come from Christianity, you can easily connect it to that you're a sinner, you've done sin, and that's why this is happening to you. You know, if you're coming from another background, there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of different stories that we we relate to, or we think because of this or because of that, or yeah. So anything else? Anyone else wants to share anything in regards to
Yeah,
this topic? Yes, please.
yeah. You mentioned also about the change, like the situation of women. I come from a family where the girls were not, even not even the women were particularly encouraged to speak up. On the contrary, and when I was a young girl, also it was quite challenging to be outside in peace and be ourselves and not having to think how to protect yourself. So to watch today, when women can do nearly everything, it's I like particularly what you said about that we are like we are two entities. One is the mask of the ego, and the other one is the one who is divine or connected with the divinity. And I felt very freedom to think it through.
Mm,
That is the truth, and it was like it took everything away, all these barriers towards speaking out, and yeah, whatever happens, whatever situation there will be. So it, I really felt it inside,
mm.
that never to be afraid, never to hide, never to protect, or do it as little as possible. Never was very strong word, but as little as possible. So thank you.
You're welcome. Um, Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it, because it's also for me encouraging that yeah, it does encourage me. Like, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing.
If I may add something,
Yes, please.
thank you. I wanted to notice some phenomenon of modern times. We agree that women can do just about everything. However, there is this theory that the thyroid disorders that are epidemic these times are associated with inability to speak your truth. And this is, you may say, just one of the theories. However, it's not unpopular, and both genders suffer from this disease, but especially women. And again, I don't know the answer to the question whether it's true or not. But apart from the theory of, I don't know, toxins, iodine deficiencies, and so forth, the popular theory says it's because we don't say our truth. We do not let our voice matter. As humankind or as womankind doesn't matter. But if there is any truth to this theory, we should seriously consider whether we are telling our truth as we claim we do.
Okay. I'm not sure if I understood everything you said.
Okay, I'm slightly under the weather, so I apologize. My voice is.
Yeah, no problem. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm sick too. Okay, the part is. Let me see if I understand correctly. Were you like sharing, or you asked me a question? That's the part I didn't.
I was sharing a
Yeah.
theory why there is so many thyroid disorders in the modern world.
Thyroid?
Thyroid,
Thyroid.
that one.
Yes.
And there is a theory that says that apart from toxins and such, the true reason behind the thyroid disorders is the fact that we do not express our feelings, we don't voice our concerns, we don't speak our truths.
Okay. Were you with us earlier when I mentioned that this not speaking our truth has to do with our fifth chakra? Did you know?
I was not.
No.
I was not.
Oh, okay, great. So you, it's a good thing you brought it up because I was sharing with our audience earlier that speaking the truth has to do with the fifth chakra, which is expressions. And this is an epidemic. This is something is all over the world, and
Yes.
and not necessarily pertains to women. It's just to all of us that and again, it goes back to thousands of years of being repressed. And I mentioned earlier that when a child is being born, I mean, the child doesn't come with a manual, with an operating manual for parents how to raise a child. So the parents are basically going to deal with the child based on what has happened to them when they were a kid, because that's the only thing they know, and they're going to be pretty much acting the same way with their kids. Uh, and it's to repress the children and not looking at them as an equal. So, not allowing them to express their thoughts or their feelings. So, we overpower them. So, yes, I agree with you 100%. Cool. So, I think we cover this topic today. It was a great topic. Thank you for bringing it up, Hilde. And for those who are not a member of my academy, you can join us through my website, zarathustra.tv, and go to the academy and sign up. And that way we can meet up on the Zoom. We have this meeting every Thursday, and you can communicate with me directly. We're simultaneously broadcasting it on YouTube, Facebook, and also Instagram. But on these other panels, I'm not able to communicate with you and answer your questions. So if you want to have a direct communication with me, best is to join us via the Academy. My website is zarathustra.tv. My email is info@zarathustra.tv. And our social media is Zarathustra5D. We will, what is next week? What is the date? It's not Christmas, is it? No. So we'll have our academy next.
There is academy next week.
There is academy next week.
I saw it, yes.
Okay. All right.
The 19th.
Maybe
On the
we can go once more deeper in this step, because for me it's a very important topic. I often see the picture of Jesus on the cross.
Right.
When we speak about be truly and speak the truth, because for this he was hanged on the cross.
Right. Yeah. Well, that translates. Many people been hanged on the cross. I mean, maybe
Yes.
not exactly a cross, but
Yes,
throughout the history, there's been millions and millions of people who've been crucified because they spoke their truth.
and especially the women also with the
Oh.
with the fire around the cross.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we would all have been burned alive if this was during Spanish acquisition, because we would all be considered of being a witch. So
Yes.
I would probably had past lives that they burned us alive. Just for the way we're thinking, you know? I mean, imagine that they would burn you alive because you think differently. Not even doing any kind of voodoo or doing any kind of healing work, or using your shakers. Forget about that. But just by thinking freely, being free, and they would burn you alive. So, however, in some ways, sadly, nothing has changed.
Yes.
In some ways, it's still happening. Maybe it changed its looks, but it's the same story is still going on. And you can see it, like during the pandemic, I saw it very clearly. Like if you refuse to be vaccinated, or you wanted to do something different. Like, I remember they shut down the parks and the beaches in Los Angeles. And I was like, why can't I go hiking? I'm in the mountains, and it's all green and it's full of prana. How am I going to get corona disease or pass it to someone? There's nobody here. Why can't I go for a hike and be athletic rather than staying into one unit, an apartment, because most people live in apartments these days, and you're stuck there with a few other people. and you're breathing the same air.
Yes.
And all you do is listen to the news, which is brainwashing you and creating more fear. And the moment you would walk out of that and do something else, you would be crucified by your family or close friends or whomever was around you. Because so that being burned on the cross has not changed. It's still here. It just changed the way it looks. But it's still happening. Go against the flock and just say, okay, I refuse to get vaccinated, and see what happens then. We saw that. How much negative energy and pressure you're under just because you're refusing for them to stick a needle in you, and you have no idea what's in it, because it could easily be, I don't know what it is, but it could easily be genetically modified to whatever, because they have the best engineers in the world, so they can create some shit that they're injecting you with, and then it can create all kinds of health issues in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Not even necessarily right away, but it can just, who knows what's going to happen. Yeah. So anyway, we can go on and on and on about that. But the good thing is to know that it's all God. At the end of the day, all goes back to the same source. The virus is God, the needle is God, pandemic is God, the good guys are God, and the bad guys are God. The good thing is, once you realize that, you're off the hook forever. Otherwise, you get caught into this loop of duality, of conspiracy theories and stuff like that, which they're true. They're real. I'm not saying they're not. There are evil forces on this planet that is manipulating population or creating poverty or creating disease. They do exist, but they're all God's will. Understanding that part brings tremendous amount of relief. So we'll stay there in the
So I have a
center.
quick question.
Yes.
So if all is God and we pray for wisdom, what to do in given circumstances, what God do we pray for?
That's a part of the lila of life. That's a part of the dance of separation, pretending that I'm separated from the source, and there's a God and there's a me, and now I am praying for wisdom. That's the dance. That's the hide and seek that God is playing with itself. And we can get into this topic next week, because that's a long topic. It requires a good 1 hour. Well, nice to see you all. Many blessings. Stay safe. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. And if you feel, anybody feels like this, a broadcast of any value, you're welcome to go ahead and share it with your beloved friends or whomever you feel like can benefit from this. And I thank you to be in my life, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Namaste.
Namaste.